All right, muscle tissues. We have muscle tissues, their general function is to contract, to move something, to make themselves smaller. And muscle cells are also called muscle fibers. There are three types: skeletal, smooth, and cardiac. Skeletal muscle is found attached to bones, and it's how we move. Skeletal muscle is voluntary, which means we have conscious control over our skeletal muscle. Notice it's striated. When we get to that unit, we'll talk about how those striations happen. Skeletal muscle is also multinucleated. It's multinucleated, which means it has many nuclei. That's because skeletal muscle cells are really long. So this is one muscle cell right here. It's one whole muscle cell. And it needs lots of nuclei so that each nucleus can control its general area. Okay, so skeletal muscle cell is voluntary, it's striated, and it's multinucleated. Smooth muscle. Smooth muscle is involuntary. It's not striated. And smooth muscle is found in like our digestive organs. So the stomach and the intestine have lots of smooth muscle in it. And it's involuntary. We don't really consciously control smooth muscle. Notice those smooth muscle cells are a little bit shaped differently. They're not really elongated like the skeletal muscles. They're kind of wider in the middle and then taper off. So smooth muscle is involuntary. It's found in those digestive organs, any organ that we don't consciously control. Okay, and it's not striated. Cardiac muscle. Cardiac muscle is striated. So like skeletal muscle, cardiac muscle is striated. But cardiac muscle is highly branched. You can see all these different branches in here where these cells branch off in different directions. Okay, and then the cardiac muscle is also involuntary. We don't consciously control our cardiac muscle. And the other thing with cardiac muscle are these intercalated discs. And these intercalated discs allow the cardiac muscles to communicate with each other. So cardiac muscle is involuntary, it is striated, it's highly branched, and it has those intercalated discs. All right, so which one's this? Notice the long cells, nuclei all pushed off to the sides, and it's striated. That is skeletal muscle. This one, you can see some branching here in this area, and these lines are intercalated discs. It is striated. Striations go this way. So that's cardiac muscle. And this one's not as easy to tell. It's not always easy to tell smooth muscle, but that is smooth muscle. You can see kind of those tapered cells. All right, nervous tissue. Nervous tissue is found in our brain and spinal cord, and then all the other nerves outside of the brain and spinal cord. So all the nerves that go through your periphery. Oops. There are two kinds of cells. There is the this works any better. There's neurons. And neurons are the actual cells that carry the electrochemical signal for nervous impulses. So neurons are carrying the signal. Those are the nerves. And the other type of cell is called a neuroglial cell. A neuroglial cell. And neuroglial cells are cells that support the neurons. So they help to protect it or provide nourishment for it. So those are the two kinds of cells of the nervous cells. Okay, and then here we have the neurons with all its projections, and the last unit we do will be the nervous system. And then all these little cells in here are the neuroglial cells, so supporting the neurons. Okay, the types of membranes. And the membranes are made up of these different types of tissues. So we have epithelial membranes, serous membranes, mucous membranes, and the cutaneous membrane. And then we have connective tissue membranes. And those are synovial and meninges. So the mucous membranes line interior walls of ducts and tubes that open to the outside. So they're epithelial membranes with connective tissue. It's over that basement membrane, and they have lots of goblet cells. Remember, those goblet cells produce the mucus. And the function is to protect from bacteria and viruses. So in your nose and in your respiratory system, we have these mucous membranes that help to capture our bacteria, viruses, dust, particles, so they don't go into our body. And then in the stomach, we have a mucous membrane that protects the interior of the stomach from all that hydrochloric acid that we're producing in there. Okay, serous membranes. We have, those are simple squamous over connective tissue. And we have parietal serous membranes, which line the cavities, and the visceral, which covers the organs. So we kind of put those two together to see the different types. For example, we have the parietal pleura, which lines the thoracic cavity, and the visceral pleura, which covers the heart and lungs. So these pleura refers to that thoracic cavity. Peritoneum, parietal peritoneum, lines the inside of the abdominal pelvic cavity. And the visceral peritoneum covers those digestive organs. Cutaneous membrane, that's our skin. So it's stratified squamous with connective tissue. Function, like I said, it's the skin. Synovial membranes are found inside our joints. Synovial membranes are types of connective tissue, and they line the inside of the joint, but they produce a fluid called synovial fluid that helps to lubricate our joints. So for example, our knee has a synovial membrane inside of it, and that synovial membrane lines the inside of the joint and produces synovial fluid to lubricate their knee. So those are different areas for synovial membranes. Meninges are in the brain, or in the central nervous system, and they cover the brain and spinal cord. Meninges are connective tissue, so they cover the brain and spinal cord, and they protect the central nervous system. You've heard of meningitis. Meningitis is inflammation of the meninges due to an infection. So the meninges are there to protect the brain and spinal cord.